Hey there, friend. Welcome to the Having a Mom Moment podcast. I am your host, Shannon Warner. This podcast is all about taking a few moments for yourself and reconnecting to the amazing woman behind the title of mom. You have so many plates spinning at any given time between your kids, your partner, your job, maintaining a household, etc., etc. But where does taking time just for you play into that? Let's spend some time together, you and me, right now. We're rebranding a mom moment to those sacred moments you take to fill your cup first. Let's connect, tune in, and tap into what makes us the incredible women that we are. We'll nurture ourselves first so we can be our best selves for those we pour into on a daily basis. We'll also bask in the beautiful wisdom of other moms to learn about the ways in which they've tapped into alignment in their own motherhood journeys. Come on, mama, it's your time. We're having a mom moment. Hello, my friends. Welcome to this week's episode of the Having a Mom Moment podcast. I am your host, Shannon Warner, and I am just so grateful that you've taken your precious time to join us here today. Before we roll into the episode with my beautiful guest, Staci, I wanted to remind you that Healthy Table Talk is coming soon with my friend Hannah Koshak, who was on the podcast a few weeks ago now. And this podcast is not going anywhere, but it's just another opportunity to hang out with us. And it's going to be live. It's going to be live weekly on Tuesdays. And the link to subscribe to her YouTube channel is in the show notes. So come hang out with us over there. Also, I mentioned in last week's solo episode that if you're feeling stuck or you just know that you've signed up for something greater in this lifetime, but you're not sure what it is, and you just feel like you're living Groundhog Day, schedule a coffee chat with me. The link is in the show notes. There's absolutely zero obligation. I'm just an unbiased third party who believes in you and believes in the things that you dream about. And I just want to be here to champion you. And it also helps me learn more about the women in my audience and how I can best serve them. So again, absolutely free, no obligation. The link for that is in the show notes. This week's guest is Staci Berkovitz of the Living on the Exhale podcast. I was a guest on her podcast a couple months back. She's a beautiful human. She is a former teacher like myself, turned corporate wellness plus fitness extraordinaire. She's so fun to talk to, and I knew that she was going to bring a lot of beautiful energy to the episode, but her story has blown me away. I know you're going to find her story so impactful, so let's get into it. Here is Staci. Hi, Staci. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, Shannon, it's my absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I am thrilled to have you, one, because we know each other a little bit through our community that we're a part of. And Staci has had me on her podcast, which I love that you're also putting your magic out in the world. And I think we've connected and like hit it off. So I know this is going to be a great conversation, and I had a great time on your podcast. So I'm excited to see what unfolds here today.
Yeah, like continue the party. And that podcast, by the way, so many moms to be loved it. So just a side note, they absolutely loved it. And a couple of them downloaded your the maternity thing. I can't remember what the actual PDF or whatever you have, but they were like, whoa, this is good stuff. So thanks for putting that together for them.
I'm so glad to hear that. And I have not promoted it as much lately, just because I've been doing other things, and people are still like trickling in, and I'm like, where did you come from? Like, welcome, but where are you coming from? I don't know. So maybe they're coming from you, because I'm like, it hasn't been like spoken about on my end much at all lately. So that's
just
great.
found you. They were just like, I knew it. This is what I needed to hear.
Oh, I love that. Right. And I think this kind of goes along naturally. Like I always say, oh, we were talking before this, because the conversation starts, as soon as we hop on, and it's always so good. But just like the things, the podcast episodes, finding who they need to find, and, the things that we're doing, finding the people that need it, and opportunities for ourselves, the correct aligned opportunities coming into our realm, and just the magic of all of that when you choose to dance in that.
Yeah. And letting things, I think one thing that I'm being reminded of lately is the magic of flow. Anytime I feel grabby, and this is like in the dating world or in the career world or in my own business world or friendships, whatever it is, anytime I'm feeling grabby, it's just that almost that icky grab, like I have to have it. that flow stops. It almost halts. And I'm starting to really lean into letting things flow in ways that I haven't before because I'm such a do person. Like, I know we've talked before about this, Shannon. We are like the to-do whiteboard girls.
Yeah.
Like, give me a whiteboard and a notebook so we can like tell you all our plans and graph it all out for you. And that's good because that's action. And I'm starting to learn that when I feel that grabbiness, to let things flow
Mm.
instead. And that is a big old pivot in the world of Staci lately.
It is. And for me, it's a practice that I have to keep actively working on because I drift right back into that so easily. But for me, the warning sign is when I'm like, I'm stressed out. Like that's when I know that even if I feel like I'm doing the things and like I'm coming from an aligned place, as soon as I feel the tension in my body or I feel myself getting short because I feel like I have too much to do, then I'm actually not in flow. That's the opposite of flow for me.
Is so the opposite of flow. And it's so cool though that we are recognizing that, like finally, in our lives,
Mm,
because I think we've been taught to be doers. Do. That's value. Do equates to value. And when I feel
yes.
that grabby thing, the other thing I know is that my nervous system is being hijacked. I'm in that familiar, I have to do to and achieve to be a value. And so I'm in like either that, usually that fight or flight, like do, grabby, grabby. And that's when I know I'm like, ooh. So it's, you nailed it when you said it's a daily practice. It is such a daily practice. And it's such a reminder that once you start becoming aware of those feelings, like, oh, I need to take a step
Hmm.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, allowing yourself to pause. Yeah, because I used to be like, no, 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 I'm going to power through it. No, that's not the answer. That's like actually the best time to like, if you can go outside, take a walk, get some fresh air, put your face in the sun. Yeah.
So because you said that, I have to share what we were just talking about last week then, because it's like a perfect example of, because we are the muscle power through girls. And there's sometimes in life, you got to do it, right? Like
Right.
it's just, that's the only option at that moment. So it's not an always thing, right? But last week, Shannon and I were supposed to record this podcast. And I was having a struggle. I was on the struggle bus that week. I just was really in my head and really struggling. And in the past, I would have been like, I committed to Shannon. I love that girl. I'm going to be on our podcast. We're going to record. All is well. And I woke up and I was like, I can't. I'm not being true to myself and I'm not going to show up in a great way for Shannon. And so I sent Shannon an email and I was like, I'm so sorry. I have to reschedule. And of course, with all her grace and kindness, she was like, good job listening to you. Like, that's exactly what you need to do. So, and here we are, and we're recording. The world didn't end. But again, that's an example of the past where I would be like, I gotta do it, I gotta do it. Right. And then
Right.
now just kind of being like, what is my nervous system telling me in this situation?
Right. The power of listening and honoring whatever your body's telling you. We are so out of practice as a culture of doing that
Yeah.
because we're in systems that make us feel like we have to perform and have output consistently and doing all the things. So it is a lot of unlearning to even be able to have the awareness to listen and go, wait a second.
Yeah.
I need to slow down. I need to honor my needs here. Mm,
Yeah. Big time.
so good. So good. I mean, we just hit the ground running. But do
I know.
you
I'm
mind?
like, let's talk about deep stuff. Yeah. No,
Oh,
go for it. Go
I'm
ahead.
here for the deep stuff, but I would love to know more about your motherhood journey and how life has been for you and where you are today as a result of that journey.
Oh gosh. Yeah. So let me tap on the mic, tap, tap, tap. Yeah. So my motherhood journey actually started, goodness, when I was 30. And I'd been married 6 years. We had never tried to have kids before that. At that time, I was very religious, and everyone else in my religious organizations were popping out babies. And I was like, not yet. I was a teacher at the time. And I know, Shannon, you were too,
Former teacher
right?
club, yep.
Former teacher club, we're members. And I was so fulfilled as a teacher. So I didn't really feel like that inner voice of like, let's have a baby. And then we moved from Arizona to Texas. And I was like, I'm just going to take a little time off. And maybe this is time for us to start thinking parenthood. And so I decided to do like some substitute teaching just to bring in a little bit of money. And my now ex-husband was traveling a lot for work at that time. And so one day I read the book Kite Runner. And there's just this little part in it where it talks about the orphanages in Afghanistan. And I was so touched by it that I went online, and this is back in like 2003, where they used to put like kids in orphanages picture, which now it's like a horrific idea. But at the time it was like, oh, it was like, puppy shopping, right? Like, I want that one and that one and that one. And so, I would see and I was like, I can't believe there's still orphans in the world. Like, I was just so disconnected from that. It wasn't like anything I'd ever been around. So I called my husband at the time and I was like, why don't we think about adopting? And he was like, uh, okay. He was kind of a like, whatever you say. And so we initially began a path to adopt one kid, one boy, and then we were like, and then after that, we'll start popping out our own. I love the way I'm saying it, popping out,
I
like
love
it's
it.
just like it's Pez candy.
Right.
Yep, I'll have
Here's another one.
Yeah, here's another. So we went through the process. It was very expensive, and we wanted to adopt like an older kid, like around 5 was kind of our target age. We thought we could do that. And so it was just so much money. So we did like a couple fundraisers that, didn't really equate to much. And then we did like, savings and all that kind of stuff. And then I found out about this program where again, Russia is now a closed country. You cannot adopt from Russia, which now it's extra closed with what's going on in the world. But at the time it was very close. But at that time it was open. And so there were these programs where they would have these kids from Russia come over and they would spend some time during the summer. And it was like a American experience, right, with a family. And so what the kids supposedly didn't know was the family was kind of vetting, like, would this child be a good fit for us or our family or whatever. And so it was like a preview, like a little preview of like, could this be a good family dynamic type thing. So I signed up for 3 of them and got on the waiting list. And I was like, that is the way to go. So at the time you had to go to Russia 3 times, meet the kid, go to your court, and then pick up the kid. So it was like 3 trips. It was very expensive. So doing this hosting made it go to just 1 trip. And so we were like, we can do that. This would fit. And so, and I guess background wise, my family's like my grandma's from Russia. So there was some connection there. And my family's Jewish. I wasn't Jewish at the time when I was doing this adoption, but my family's Jewish, and they were escaping back in the 1920s from the pogroms happening in Russia.
Wow.
And so my grandma lost her siblings and her parents, minus a brother, trying to escape. And so it was almost like a full circle thing.
Wow.
To go back to Russia. Yeah. So anyway, so we got on these waiting lists, and it was just like we were hitting walls. We're talking about the grabby thing, right? So it's just like we're hitting walls. And then one time we decided to fast and pray for that if this was what we're supposed to do, that we would be able to adopt 1, maybe 2 kids, and that it would just open or host 1 or 2 kids. So a week later, I got home from a week later, I got home from a teachers convention. It was in the summer, and there was a message, and it was from one of the adoption coordinators at one of the companies. And she's like, please call me. I have kids available. And I was like, okay. So I call her up and she's like, okay, I know you said 1, maybe 2. How about 3? And she said, and I know you said 5. How about an almost 10-year-old and 2 5-year-olds? They're twins. Like, would you be open to 3? And as she's telling me this, I'm feeling like goosebumps all over my body. Like, oh my gosh, these are my kids. And I hadn't seen their pictures. I had known nothing about them. And she said they were adopted by another family in California just a couple weeks ago. However, it's not working out, which is actually very common.
Wow.
And so they have contacted us for a replacement, and we need you to make a decision by tomorrow and go out to California to meet them by Saturday. Yeah. So we had to, like, we went into mode. And so we had to have our social worker come over who did our home study to change how many kids we were eligible for.
Wow.
And I remember going to Walmart. I was like, I have to buy, where do you start? I have to buy things for my children. And so my children and I have never met. And like, so I came home with hair bows. That was my success at Walmart and preparing to have 3 new kids was like hair bows.
Oh
And
my
so
gosh.
fortunately, we had a really good community around us that like rallied and found beds, we had an
Wow.
extra bed already, but found beds and painted when we were gone. Anyway, we went to California to meet the kids and to meet the family the couple that had adopted them. And it was really like it was, you just have this feeling of grace and this feeling of like absolute peace. And I needed that. I didn't know I would need that to prepare me for raising kids who had come from an orphanage, but I had this like peace kind of fill my body. And so we go and we meet the kids. And the very, very first day, my now son, who is 9 and almost 10, runs up and he has to me and he has a kite. And just a reminder about Kite Runner.
Right. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah, it was crazy. And so, and one of my girls came up and they didn't speak any English, right? So they just came up and smiled. And anyway, so we spent a few days playing with them. And then they had had 2 nannies from Russia and Ukraine with this couple. And so they did a lot of they did all the, translating or whatever. But we had to sit down with the oldest son because the youngest were a little too young to understand. And we had to, we all had to tell them that we're their new parents. So you can imagine how that rocked their nervous systems
Wow.
and their world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was the beginning of motherhood. We had to stay in California a few days until we got the sign off because you're crossing state lines with kids you don't have custody of. And so
Hmm.
the state has to sign. So we went to California a few days or we're there. And then we're in Arizona for a few days. And then we were in New Mexico until we could make it, get signed by each state to get back to Texas.
Wow.
So that was motherhood by fire. And my oldest son, like his first year, had temper tantrums, multiple every day. And at the time, I didn't understand nervous system regulation. I kind of understood like reactive attachment disorder and those kind of things, but I didn't totally understand what we were walking into. But man, he had such a good heart, but just really had a lot happen to him in his life. And so then in the future, a few years later, we were like, well, we built our family. Let's add to it because why why not add to it? And so we're like, well, if we have a kid, that's going to maybe make our kids that we adopted feel weird, and I don't know, whatever we were thinking at that time. And so we went forward to adopt again, and we brought home half siblings. One didn't work out, unfortunately, but found a great placement for her. And then the other one stayed with us, and he was 8.5 when he was adopted. So kids' ages now are 29, 25, 25, 23. And
Wow.
so, yeah, that was my journey to motherhood. Yeah.
What a journey. Oh my gosh. I have adoption around me. My best friend has adopted girls, and my husband's sister, they've adopted children. So but these were like domestic, I don't adoptions, in the States here.
Yeah.
And I just know the hoops that they had to jump through. And, for someone who's like, I want children, help me have children who don't have homes. Like I'm vetted, my home is safe, all the things. And I know it is such a process. So to add that international aspect, I cannot imagine the extra weight of that experience and the language barrier.
Yeah. And the language barrier. And I think what I now understand, which I just briefly said, but is what attachment at an early lack of attachment does at an early age to brain development. I didn't really understand that, how that would play out, especially as they became teenagers and what their
Mm,
teenage years were. Can I say hell on your
please,
podcast?
of
Okay.
course.
Yeah, their teenage years were hell. And I used to like be like, this is so hard as a mom, but holy cow, it was also so hard for them as kids, right? Like trying to understand their worlds within all the trauma, because they were dealing with so much trauma that had either been tucked down or had been
Mm.
coming out in ways that people would be like, what's wrong with that kid? Right. But it's like, okay, well, they had like huge trauma in Russia. And then they got a new set of parents. And, I watched Annie growing up. So I was like, the sun will come out tomorrow. Like, just enough love will make everybody happy. And then I didn't realize what trauma does to kids and brain development and attachment. So it has definitely been a journey. I think if I would, adoption's so unique now internationally, it doesn't happen quite as often now. It's definitely slowed down quite a bit, although there are still a few countries that are open. I would say with anyone who's opening their hearts and their homes to older children is to just really understand dynamically what that looks like in a child's body when they've had a lack of attachment happen in their early years, and just to prepare yourself with all the tools you can to really provide them with the best care that they'll need.
Yes. Do you have any suggestions of resources that maybe, or where people could begin to look?
Yeah, yeah. So at the time, the organization, I haven't touched any of that for so many years now, because the last adoption was 2008 or 9.
Hmm.
So, but it was FRUA. It was like Russian and Ukrainian adoption, Friends of Russian Ukrainian adoption.
Yeah,
I have no idea if it even exists anymore.
right.
But the magic of Google, I would just say, really, like, there's so many support groups. I bet there's a ton of Facebook groups with supporting mamas and papas who are doing adoption internationally. But yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I would say that is the most important thing, is to make sure you have a community around you, because you'll need it,
Yeah.
and to prepare yourself as well.
Community is so important. I Number one, period, the end right there. But also for whatever you're in, whatever journey you're on, whatever stage of the journey you're on, if you can get plugged into a community that is also aligned with that, it is so impactful, is how you and I met. It's through a community, and it's just the power of community. My good friend, she has two girls that she adopted now, but lost a daughter early on who had just a list, very medically complex, lots of things going on. And she gave the advice when she was on the podcast saying, just go into Facebook and type in whatever the thing is that your medically complex child is going through. And I'm sure there's at least 5 groups. There may even be one in your area, because that's the beauty of the technology and the social media, is like there are other people going through it and going, let's hold space. Let's create a community for other people.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, as you say that, when I was going through the second adoption and what we were seeing, one of the kids had fetal alcohol syndrome, and that was a lot. And I think now, if I typed in, like you said, like raising a child with there'd be so much, but there really wasn't that much. I think Facebook was just kind of starting.
Yep.
I don't think I joined Facebook until 2009, so it was like post adoption. But yeah, no, it's definitely we're definitely, that's the beauty of social media. If we can find, we can find the beauty within social media, it's right there, it's within community.
So important. If we just look or ask somebody, find a connection and ask them, because usually there's, resources that someone else is tapped into. That is an incredible journey. Thank you so much for sharing and sharing, all sides of it, because there's a lot to it. There's a lot packed in there. So, what is it like now being a mom of adult kids? And what is life now? I'm still very much in the weeds. I've got a 2-year-old, I've got an almost 7-year-old. So what is life like now on the other side with adult children?
Other side, well, okay. So I'm going to tell a quick experience, because, and I don't know who needs to hear this, but somebody someday will need to hear this. So my oldest son, who's now 29, he'll be 30 in July, which just like blows my mind. So he was tough, and my youngest son was tough. My twin girls didn't become tough until like later teenage years, but my oldest and youngest were tough. They both had gone through a lot. Everything you can think about to happen to a kid that's not great happened to them in Russia. Then let's add another layer. My ex-husband and I got divorced. So now you add, like, that one rock. Now, I mean, that's a lot, right? That's a lot for anybody. So I champion their resiliency and their ability to like exist as they are. So my oldest son made some really bad choices around 18, and it kind of became this stone rolling forward that gathered speed, right? And like because of that bad choice, this bad choice, anyway. So
Yeah.
he made some bad choices, and then when he was about 21, he got really upset with me about something, and it was really strange. It was his dad and I, we were divorced, but he got upset with me about it and cut off all communication for about 7 years, 6 years, maybe.
Wow.
And would refer to me in very, very awful terms. And when somebody does that, when somebody says that, it's their pain talking. It's not their soul, it's their pain. And so I have perspective on it now, but it was really hard. I was like, but I was always there for you, and I love you, and I gave you,
Right.
but it was really painful. And so fast forward to last year, he and my daughter, his sister, still talks to him. And so he got engaged. And I had kind of come to peace with the fact that, like, we had gotten engaged, I guess, in 2022. So I knew it was coming, and I'd come to peace with I wasn't going to be going to the wedding. And so in 2023, my daughter had gotten this box from his fiance that had like, thanks for being in my wedding, because she was a bridesmaid, and then like a little something for my granddaughter who's going to be walking as a flower girl. And so, and it just hit me like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be at that wedding. And so I was like, I thought that wound had healed, but boy, do I feel that today. And so I immediately found a therapist and called the therapist. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Do I still send a gift? He doesn't want anything to do with me. What do I do? And she gave really good advice. She just said, you show up, not literally at the wedding, but you show up as yourself in the greatest amount of love. And yes, buy a gift. And so that was my plan. And that was how I kind of came to peace with it. And then the community that Shannon and I have been a part of, it's just a very encouraging community. And I think it took me next level to just really leaning into abundance and love and going deeper into my own calm and peaceful place. And one day in like August of last year, I got a text message from my son. And he said, hey, can we talk? It's nothing bad. And I was so used to like, kind of the abusive, whatever. And so I understood why he qualified that. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And so a couple days later, we had our first phone conversation. He had contacted me one other time because he needed a document in those 7 years, but I hadn't like heard from him other than that as a phone call. And he said, I'm really sorry for being a dick these last 7 years.
Wow.
And I wanted to know if you wanted to go to my wedding.
Oh, yeah. That's so magical. I know there's so much pain
Yeah.
behind that, and what did you do? You tapped into love and like centering yourself, and he just came around.
Yeah, it was letting go of what it needed to look like. It was his own work, it's his own journey. And I think that's advice I would give moms is like, just be within your own energy, within your own journey, within your own peace, and recognizing that kids have their own journeys. And maybe we're meant for a reason, a season, or a lifetime to walk alongside our kids. And sometimes maybe it's just a season, and just leaning into that. And so I did go to the wedding, of course. It was in Kansas, it was another state. And so I had put together, I used to read him the book Love You Forever. I don't know if that book's still around. Love you
Yeah.
forever. I like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby will be.
My
Okay.
baby you'll
So
be.
I had
Yep.
yes,
Yep.
yes. So I had found this like dog tag with like a necklace. So I'd gotten that and a couple little other things, I think like a handkerchief or something else. And I put it together in a little box, and like I gave it to my daughter to give to him pre-wedding. And anyway, I'm walking up for the wedding, and he's outside smoking with like, some other kids. It's the first time I've seen him. And I look at him, and we just hugged for probably a minute or two. And then he like showed me he was wearing what I had given him. And it was just a really beautiful, it was a beautiful experience. It's so cool to see how he's becoming a man. He married a really kind person, a really good soul. And that's his journey. And so, I hope I get to continue being a part of it. And regardless, that was a magical moment and a gift. That was a gift to be able to be there. So yeah, motherhood.
Yes. I think what you said, people are either going to resonate with it or going to go, what the actual, like, it's their journey and I'm just supposed to take it if they're, ignoring me and cutting me out and whatever else. But you were not the first person to say that. Andrea Gibson was a guest. Her episode aired a couple weeks ago, and she was like, I'm their mom. I am their guide. Like on the side, I create safe, neutral environments for them. But like, this is their journey, and how dare I take their lessons away from them? I mean, we're obviously not going to endanger our children, but like, you could do everything right and your child is going to show up authentically as who they are, and you can't change that. And I think so many of us want to control. I may be projecting here. I think a lot of us want to control because it feels safer for us to be like, okay, here's your little, stay right here, stay right here, it's safe over here, please don't go over there, don't go over there. But it's like, again, it's their journey. All you can do is pour into them and love them in the best way you know how, and try to instill some decency and some values in them. Like, that's all you can do, right?
It really is. And if you think about it, we're also on a journey too.
Amen. Yep.
Every single person in this world is on their own journey. And so who knows if your child was supposed to come and teach you, like we
Mm,
don't understand. I will tell you, this is like not a happy story, but it's a powerful one. When my oldest got in trouble with the law, and I just want to give you a little context, like I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. Like I am like, I don't want to say squeaky clean as a breath. Like I just, like I just started swearing on the regular a few years ago, and it feels awesome.
yeah,
But like anyway,
welcome.
thank you. Yeah, it's kind of great. It is a little empowering. I'm not gonna lie, but whatever it is, that's just like who I've become and who I am. Okay. So when my son was in jail, and I went to go visit him for the very first time, I remember thinking, how are we here? Like, how are we here? I thought I did everything quote right, which I didn't. I'm a freaking human being. Of course I made mistakes, but in my mind, like not that big of mistakes that they would be in jail, right? Like
Right.
what the heck?
Right.
And so I remember you have to check in. This has been years and years ago, but you have to like check in at the front, give your ID and lock up your keys. You can't take anything back. And this particular jail was humongous. And so they had like 4 pods. And to get to the pod where my son was, it was like this football field long hallway, bright hallway where you had to walk down. And so they would like, call in the group that was going to see their loved one or whatever. And I remember I was bawling, like absolutely bawling my eyes out, like, how am I here? And I can't believe why did he make these decisions, and just bawling. And I was walking down the hallway, and there was a mom walking next to me, and she just put her arm around me. And she's like, it's okay.
Oh,
It's okay. And it was such a loving reminder that it is okay.
yeah.
It is okay. It's their journey, it's their choices. And it changed me forever, because I think I was a little judgy before that, like, oh, their child's, making these bad choices. And so it was a good old, I want to say a slice of humble pie. No, it was an entire pie that I was digging into, of like, oh crap, sometimes it doesn't matter what you do as a mom. Sometimes they're going to
Right.
make their own choices.
Right. Again, I have little, so I'm not there yet, but yes, they are their own human being with their own free will at the end of the day, right? And sometimes
Yeah.
all it takes is one stupid choice at the wrong time where they get caught and they just picked the wrong day.
Yeah.
We're only human.
Yeah. We are only human.
Yes, the judgment piece, absolutely. I can totally imagine how, one, you have those feelings about other people, and then you're like, how the hell did we get here? Wow.
I just want to tell any mom out there, because I imagine you have a range of moms that listen, maybe some who are like early on, who are like, my child will never do that.
Mm,
And I hope your child doesn't end up in those situations. And if they do, mama, you're going to be okay.
right. Such reassuring words. I know it seems so simple, but it's like, it's going to be okay. I've got someone in my life going through some stuff right now, and I just keep reminding her, like, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. You've got people who've got you and love you and support you. Like, you're going to be okay. And I feel like a broken record, but I really believe it at the end of the day, whatever it is, like, it's going to work out. It's going to work out
Yeah.
for the highest and best of everybody involved. And sometimes people, like, going back to that conversation that I had with Andrea, like, these are lessons that they have to learn, right? By whatever means. And we just have to let them learn them. What else can we
Yeah,
do?
we do. And it's not easy, but it's a journey. We're all on one again. So just do your
Yeah.
best, mama, and know it's going to be okay.
Yeah. And I personally believe that we knew what this life was going to look like before we came, and we chose, like, yep, I'm signing up for this. So I believe we know what we were signing up for. We knew we were signing up for our particular parents, and we knew that we were signing up for our children just as our children were like, yep, those are going to be my parents, And even when you were telling me about the adoption story, I had goosebumps all over my body, just the way that you said, like, you had this feeling like these are my children, like this is going to be what it is. And it's like, like that's just the way it's meant to be. So, like, stepping into that and going, okay, this is the journey. This is the journey. And trusting and just allowing it to unfold the way it needs to, which is easier said than done. I understand.
Oh yeah. Dang it, it is. It
I
is.
know.
Or
I know.
damn it. Let me
Yeah, damn
upgrade my
it. I
swear
love
word.
that you're
Damn
swearing. I love
it.
welcome to swear. And that's so funny that we're former teachers, and like I had to like keep my language in check. I love colorful language. I just because I love it. I feel like you said it's empowering, and like I love to just like enhance my stories with the extra color added, but it's like you have to be so mindful between the hours of like 8 and 3. You have to like use I taught elementary, so like I had to use small words for, little people, and had to be very, very careful about not uttering damn it under my breath in front of somebody.
Or an F bomb when like the blocks fell. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so interesting. I think it's interesting too. And I know you love Sasha, right? Were you and Sasha Bram potted together? Wait a minute. How do you know Sasha?
I love me some Sasha.
She's
Yes,
amazing.
she's in my pod. We still meet about once
Okay.
a month.
Yeah.
And for your listeners, pods are just like groups where we get together
Yeah.
virtually. Sasha actually lives in England. She's
Yep.
fantastic. And you had her on your show,
I
right?
did. I
At some
love
point.
her. Yeah.
Love her guts.
Yeah.
Love that lady. Yeah. So she's a mom of three, and one has special needs, and Sasha's
Yeah.
one spiritual giant, that's for sure.
She's amazing. It's just so interesting how we, like, former teachers and like without looking, like we keep bumping into each other. I've had other women who are like, wait a minute, I used to be a teacher too. And it's like, wait, whoa. I like, what is it in this underlying energetic where we're all still drawn to each other, even if we've left the field?
Yeah, it's the whiteboards. It always is, Shannon.
Oh my gosh, we talked about this when I was a guest on her. I forgot what we were saying, but I was like, I'm staring at a whiteboard right now. Like, and I'm still staring at it of like, here's my year-long plan and the things that I'm gonna do and like who I'm gonna talk to. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
We're in the whiteboard club.
That's
Yeah, for
so
sure.
funny. And my daughter loves playing school and she loves pretending to be a teacher. So I wonder how this is gonna play out for her on her journey.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You may have a future colorful language teacher. Maybe she'll teach high school where it's a little more accepted.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. So amazing. Thank you for sharing all of that journey. But what are you doing now? What realm are you dancing in currently? What goodness can you share with our audience?
Yeah. So as far as motherhood, or as far as just like in general?
And whatever. Tell us, Stacy. Tell us
Whatever.
all the
Okay.
things, Stacy.
I'm going to tell you all the things.
We're
Okay.
here for it.
So all my kids are grown. I do have an interesting story I'll say in just a second, but just giving a little background. I'm taking actually a kids mindfulness training certification at the time. I have no idea what I want to do with it, except for I want to add it to my toolbox, especially since I have a granddaughter, and just maybe put together some type of program for the schools or the hospitals with kids of helping them with mindfulness.
Yes.
So I'm tucking that away as a possibility. I'm turning 50 in May, and
I'm
I'm
sorry.
doing the
I'm
year.
sorry. I don't know how much of the video I will share later on, but no one is going to believe this because you do not look a day over 35. Like lies,
My
deceit.
gosh, thank you. Thank you very much. It's the filter on Zoom. No, okay, thank you
No,
very
you're
much.
gorgeous. You look amazing.
Thanks, Shannon. I was 12 when I adopted the children. So, but I'm turning 50. And so I decided I do have a podcast, and every Tuesday I release an episode. And most of them are I'm interviewing amazing people like Shannon. And then at the end, I have a meditation. And then Thursdays, starting actually this Thursday, I am doing the year I turned 50. So every episode is something new that I've never done before.
Oh,
And it's me reporting on it. And so I'm writing a book about it. You'll hear it on the podcast. I have an Instagram account called The Year I Turned 50,
yeah.
where I'm going to, yeah. So I've done 20 so far. So I've recorded my first 20
Wow.
of new experiences. Yeah. And then I have a retreat partner. We're running a retreat in April. Shannon and I were talking about this. I'm trying to decide if I go back into the corporate world, because sometimes we do need the consistent paycheck. But I'm also really open to whatever's next, whether that looks like a job or if that looks like continuing doing my own thing, but just kind of trusting the journey and letting go of the grabby, putting putting forth the work, but letting go of the grabby of what's supposed to come next, and just being open
Mm.
to it. So those are some of the things I'm up to.
Can you give us a couple of like sneak peeks of like some of the things that you've done for the year I turned 50?
Yes. So I went to a seance. That was
Oh,
one. Yeah.
fascinating.
Never have done that before.
No, me
Um,
either.
yeah, very interesting. And then I took improv classes. That was something else I
Oh,
did.
I would crawl under a rock. I give you so much
No,
credit. Oh my gosh.
it would be great.
You know what's hilarious? Okay, former teachers. A couple weeks back, I had a woman named Michelle Piskel, also from our Kathy Heller world. She was a teacher forever and then was like, I need something for me, and started taking improv, and like has started this like comedy tour business. But she was like, I just decided to take improv one day. And I'm like, who are you people who are like, yeah, this is a good idea? But amazing.
Phenomenally fun. Like, if you can find a place, if you have time, it is so much fun. And I did drama in like high
Okay.
school and junior high and
Okay.
college, but it's not the same. It is not the same thing. Like, it is really like being funny on your feet, which sometimes I do okay, and sometimes it's a disaster, but it was really good. And there were people in the group who were taking it because they had anxiety speaking in front of others. And so this was like
Mm.
their way to kind of break through. It was great fun. So those are a couple of sneak peeks of things I've done.
Ooh. So that'll be on your podcast. Ooh, that's fun. I love that. Yeah. Can you tell us more about your podcast? I've been on your podcast and I know you got meditation mixed in, but like who are you talking to? Who is your target audience?
Yeah, so it's called Living on the Exhale, finding joy, inspiration, and laughter in the messy middle of our lives. And I think you, after hearing my stories, I understand messy. So I have people who have it just kind of depends on the guest, but just people sharing their experiences and their wisdom and their journeys, and then how that inspires other people with their own journeys. So it's been fun. Like Valentine's week, I usually just do one episode a week before a year I turn 50, right? That week I did, let's see, I had singles on one day, I had a love coach on, I had
Oh,
people's meet cute stories, I had women dating younger, and then I had married people. So I had a week full of like just all the
I love
hallmarky love.
that.
Yeah, so it's been a great journey as well.
Mm.
I do want to share one other story if I can. Is that
Please, of
okay, Shannon?
course, of course.
Okay. And this is just going for this, like we would file this in the category of, well, that's not how I thought life was going to look.
Mm-hmm.
Can we put that in that category? Okay. So my kids were, like, as you can imagine, very difficult to raise. And so I made this promise to myself that when they were graduated from high school, I was going to sell my house and I was going to travel the world for a year. I was going to use the money. I was going to put some in savings, and
Yeah.
then I was going to travel the world for a year. So in February of 2019, I put my house on the market. It went under contract that day. And I was like, this is great. I'll probably leave January 2020, gives me a little time to, get things in order. I was putting together the list of countries I was going to be frolicking from. I had the whole vision. Somewhere I still have like the sticky note where I wrote like all the countries. And 2 weeks later, after my house went under contract, my daughter said, "Hey, can I come over and talk to you?" And I said, "Well, I'm leaving the country tomorrow for a week. I was going out of town on vacation. Can we chat when I get back?" And she said, "It's kind of important." And I was like, "Okay, come over." So both my daughters show up together. They're twins, right? They both show up together. And my daughter Tanya says, "So I'm pregnant."
Mm.
She lifts up her shirt and she said, "I'm 7 months pregnant." Now, I want to say that she was at my house 2 weeks before that for pizza and movie night, right? It's not like I hadn't seen her.
Oh my gosh.
She did not find out she was pregnant until she was 6 months, 6.5 months-ish pregnant.
Oh, okay.
She had the irregular periods. She was tiny. So she just had no idea she was pregnant.
Wow.
So I said, and at that time, she was like my easy kid, mostly 4.0, all the AP, like all that kid. And then she her senior year kind of went like wild for 2 years, like end of her senior year in the first. So she had all these schools she got accepted to. And she's like, "I'm going to take a gap year." And then the gap year became 2. And then now she's pregnant. She's like living on people's couches and stuff. Anyway, I said, "Okay, you need to move home tonight. We're going to go to the grocery store. We're going to buy you a bunch of food. And I'll be back in a week." And my other daughter had like the mindset. She was so like smart about like making sure she could get on it. Is it Medicaid? Is that the insurance that kids
Mhm.
get? Okay,
Yeah.
anyway. So whatever the insurance, so she got her on there. And so then I obviously I'm in this other country, but all I can think about is like my daughter's pregnant. And my daughter
Right.
said, I want to put my baby up for adoption because, I'm grateful for my adoptive family and I'm not in a position to raise this child right now. She was like 19, I think, at the time. And so, the whole trip, I'm like, oh my gosh, it was only fortunately like a 5-day trip. And so on the way back, I land in Boston, and I check in with my daughter, "Where are you at with everything?" And she's like, "Yes, I want to go forward with adoption." And so I spent hours in my hotel room calling doctors to see if they would take a 7-month pregnant mother, right? And the first 14 said, "Nope, too much of a risk. Nope, nope, nope." And I said, what are pregnant women supposed to do? Like if they don't
Right.
have a doctor? And they're like, "You just go to the hospital ER when you're delivering." I'm like, "What?" So the
Wild.
15th, it's so wild. The 15th doctor said, A, they accept Medicaid, and B, yes, they'll accept her. And it was this doctor who was in his like late 60s, had delivered thousands of babies. It was just such a gift. So we found our doctor. And then as I'm waiting for my flight to go back to Dallas, I'm talking to an adoption agency. And this is like when we do the mom in action mode, right? This is like when the action pays off, right? Sometimes, you're like, "Kid, figure it out." Well, this was a big thing, that this is like a help your child time.
Yeah.
So we found an adoption agency. We went in, she talked to the lady and she's like, "Yeah, that's the agency I want to go with." So that was it for 2 months until, and she said the one thing is I don't want to have a C-section because I don't want to have a scar to be reminded of
Mm.
this choice. And so as we're getting closer and closer, she picks the couple. She had all these couples that wanted to adopt her baby, and she picks the couple. And we go to Olive Garden with the caseworkers for both to meet this couple who are just delightful. They're just kind as anything. And they'd had a couple failed adoptions. So it just felt like this is really beautiful. So her water breaks early. Unfortunately, the baby's head is stuck and she's going to need to have a C-section.
Mm.
So we go to the hospital at like midnight. And at 5 a.m, I'm in the room with her and she has her C-section. She was so brave. Like nothing makes you prouder than seeing your own kid. I was just like, "You are so freaking brave." I never had a child. Like I never delivered a
Right.
child. So I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is what y'all have to do." Like being up close and personal with it. So, it was just so moving to watch her. And so, we knew that this baby was only going to be with us for a few days. And so it was like trying mentally not to get attached to
Mm.
this this baby. And so because she had a C-section, I don't know how the rules are in each state, but in Texas, you can't be on pain medication for 24 hours in order to sign the adoption papers. And since she had a surgery, the C-section, it was going to be like 4 days until she
Okay.
could be released. And so
Wow.
during that time, she's like nursing this baby and, holding the baby and, the magic of motherhood, bonding with the baby. And so the night before the morning of when she's supposed to sign these papers, we're sitting there bawling, right? It's just this very emotional time. And the next morning I get there and she goes, I can't. And the couple, meanwhile, is sitting downstairs in the cafeteria waiting to take home their baby with the baby seat. So there's all kinds of emotions going on. So she talks to the caseworker, she talks to, me, and she's processing it. She's like, I'm so sorry, I just can't. And my daughter is such a people pleaser. And so this was a big deal for her to like have the courage to say, no,
Right.
I want to keep this baby. So our caseworker called their caseworker and said, I'm so sorry. She's going to keep the baby. And they said, can we come say goodbye to Tanya and her mom? And so we were
Oh,
like, so we're already crying because it's such an emotional time. They come into the room and in the most loving, kindest way, the mom that was supposed to be the mom said, you're going to be such a good mom to my
oh,
daughter.
that's so sweet. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then the dad, like to be, prayed for us, like just said, can we leave you with a prayer? 2 months later, they got a kid.
Hmm.
And that kid's mom had made a decision. These are the parents on the day Grace was born. So the universe was so aligned in that way. It was exactly what needed to be. And about 2.5 years later, we all got together. It was a remarkable experience. And so now my granddaughter, so we left the hospital literally like I had to send my son to go get a car seat. Like we had
Yeah.
nothing,
Oh my gosh.
nothing, not clothes, not diaper, like nothing. And so yeah. And now she's 4.5 and she's just so special. So I'm sorry, I know that kind of transgressed after like,
Oh
what are you up
no.
to now? But it's just sometimes life looks so different than we plan it.
Yeah.
And it's perfectly how it should be.
Right. And it's like down to that when you look back and you're like, of course the baby got stuck. Of course. And if she was meant to follow through with the adoption, it would have worked out according to the plan that she had in her mind. And, it would have been great. It would have been great for all involved, but like, wow. Wow. And just giving her so much because how scary. I mean, I had my first at 30 and I was scared and she was planned for like, oh my gosh. And then to decide that you're not keeping it, which is a huge decision. And then to decide, no, I am going to keep her. But I have people who think they're leaving with a baby today. And being a people pleaser, like I cannot imagine the courage that your daughter had. Holy shit. Just incredible. Incredible.
Such a badass, such a badass. And like really like to stay true to what exactly was supposed to be, like to be able to listen because she never listens to herself, like to be able to
Oh,
listen and be like, no, yeah. So anyway, sorry, I just wanted to share that story that
no.
sometimes life doesn't work how we think it's going to. Sometimes it works
Mm,
better, sometimes it works different, but
yeah.
man, being a mom is not for the faint of heart.
No. Oh my gosh, you have given us so much in this episode. But how many times have we cried? I've cried at least. I've got misty several times. That's okay. That's the level of conversation that I'm here for. Like this is where I want to be with people. Like let's get into it. I want to know the things and to be able to share on a platform where I can share with other people. So, it's just like our journeys are so profound and so impactful and I'm just so honored to have a platform to share them. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, thank you for inviting me to share it. I
Of
appreciate it.
course, of course. You've answered most of my questions that I typically ask my guests, but can you share either now as a mom of grown kids and a grandma, or when you were in the thick of it with your children, what did you do to take time for yourself and reconnect to you and your needs and yourself in motherhood?
Yeah. I felt like in the marriage I was in, and this is not trying to diss my ex-husband, but I felt like, and I think a lot of women can relate to, they have the lion's share. They just end up having the lion's share of the doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in hindsight, I would have taken better care of my health. Now, I've been
Mm-hmm.
teaching Zumba now for 13 years, and I kind of discovered that later on as my kids were teenagers, and I've taught it since then. But I think just really leaning into whatever lights you up, make sure you make time, you carve out that time, because
Yeah.
it's so easy to lose yourself. And so I'm so grateful I found Zumba. That was mine and still is. It's such a good way to reset my mind. But just find something that lights you up so you don't lose who you are in the
Yeah.
process.
So important. To go back to Andrea again, because she left me with so many juicy morsels. She said, think about it when you have children. If you have 2 children, you actually have 3, and the third one is your inner child. Put her on the schedule, because you'll ignore,
Wow.
40-year-old you all day long, but you're not going to ignore, 7-year-old you. So, yeah.
That is I don't know, Andrea, but I'm like clap.
Oh,
Yes, I'm clapping.
I
I'm
need to
doing like the
connect
real
you.
clap.
I'm going to connect you. You would love her.
Connect us. She sounds
For sure.
amazing.
For sure. But so are you, and like attracts like. So naturally. Please share with everyone where they can find you, how they can interact with you.
Yeah. Okay. So Living on the Exhale is both the name of my podcast and one of my Instagram accounts. And then the other one, if you want to follow the year I turned 50, you'll find that on my podcast on Thursdays, and then you'll also find that on Instagram. And then you can also go to my website on the Exhale. So get rid of the word living, on the Exhale, to find out more about how we can work together.
Oh my gosh. All those links will be in the show notes. We'll make sure everyone can find you. Everyone, please follow her. Your energy is amazing, and you are so sweet. And I'm so honored to know you. So thank you so much for being here, Staci.
Shannon, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Having a Mom Moment podcast. I know how busy you are as a mom, so I appreciate you taking your precious time to join us here today. If you haven't already, please be sure to follow the podcast. And if you love what you're hearing, go ahead and give it a 5-star review so that we can spread the word to other mamas who may appreciate what we're doing over here. Give me a follow on Instagram at Having a Mom Moment, and you can check out the links in my link tree for any upcoming events or offerings that I have. In case someone has told you today, you are amazing, you are loved, and I am so proud of you. I hope you have a beautiful day. We'll see you next time.